Father, Son, and Violin. Chapter 3: The Cultural Revolution. One. Home moving. From 6 up to 10 years old I lived with our family at Father's working unit. Though most of the time he was not home, as I mentioned in Chapter 1, my father, as one of the could-be-used but never trusted party members, was constantly sent to the countryside from place to place to carry out the party's endless political campaigns. My little head was filled with all the communist jargon. Jargon such as, for liquidating, the stay at one spot, the socialist education movement, the 3 antis 5 antis, the anti-right wing, the May 7th cadre school, etc., etc. Anyway, if I list all the Chinese Communist Party's political movements, I can't say that my father had contributed to every single one of them, but most of them for sure. As I also wrote in Chapter 2, not long after the Tonghao instance, my mother was removed from her working position and transferred to a much lower working unit located at the edge of Changsha city, far away from where we lived. For saving money, every day mother woke up with the chickens to go to her workplace at the crack of dawn, by foot. The distance even today takes me, a strong man, over an hour. Coming back from work she was also walking in the dark. I can still clearly recall the scene, every evening, 3 hungry brothers sitting together in darkness, anxiously awaiting the sound of our mother's footsteps. Father was away from home, mother had to work, Danson and I went to school. The only person left home was our youngest brother Danhan. Actually the youngest and weakest was not exactly left home, but locked up at home, the same as Danson had done to me during my first days in Changsha. One day I had a fight with a classmate at school. Danson had to accompany me while I stayed at school overtime. He apologized to my classmate in our parents' stead. Meanwhile, our 4-year-old little brother must have been in extreme hunger. He poured an entire bottle of oil and a bag of green lentils into a pan and put the pan on the stove. Fortunately, there was no fire in the stove, otherwise that could have resulted in a bloody tearing tragedy. Through all these years Danhan's frying oil bean, has been one of our family's standing jokes. It was also from then that Danhan decided to become a cook when he grew up so that he would never suffer from starvation again. 40 years later, he did become a cook at a Chinese restaurant in London. Frying oil bean incident forced mother to choose to move the entire family from the provincial government fence to her countryside workplace, a place called Panjiaping. 1964, we moved to a temporary 1-story house at mother's workplace. The house consisted of 8 units. That means 8 households shared the building. Each unit of the house had a front and back room, the third room was a kitchen. 2 households shared the same back door, that is to say there were 8 front doors in the building, but only 4 back doors. Because the building was meant to be temporary, nothing had been done to the ground, no cement, no wood floor, no nothing. That natural fertile soil floor consequently resulted in grass growing inside our home, under the bed for instance. We lived in that temporary 1-storied building, temporarily, for 8 years, until I became an adult and went out to make my own living. For this reason, quite a portion of my following stories take place on this scene. Two. An ugly phoenix dropped into a chicken nest. I said goodbye to my first elementary school, De Tong Wan Xiao, which was supposed to be the best elementary school in the city, and transferred to 4th grade at the New River School, absolutely among the worst in the city. During my years in De Tong Wan Xiao, I had always been one of the troublesome pupils in class. When I left, there were only 4 in the class who were not members of the Youth Pioneers, and I occupied 25%. At that time, I had a lack of self-questioning ability, therefore would only put the blame on father for being without any official title, but rather a secretary. For the atmosphere at that school was, if someone's father possessed no color-faded old army uniform, it equaled shame. On the other hand, things changed dramatically once I moved to Panjiaping. Among all those countryside boys, I was just like an ugly phoenix dropped into a chicken's nest, suddenly becoming the favorite pupil of the whole school. I was accepted to be an advanced youth team member within my first week. Next, I was chosen to be the leader of the class. And soon after that, I was appointed to play a major role in a school drama. Later I was selected to be a member of various sports teams, such as dash, ping pong, and swimming. As one of the representatives of the school swim team, I was even sent to the provincial sports school to be trained. I also took part in a few sporting events. Yet the results were all disappointing. For I had always been number one, counting from the back. All these efforts and failures meant little to me, for what I really wanted was not to be special at school among my classmates, but to be special at home, among my brothers. Three. My neighbor's sister Humimi. Humimi was our next, front door neighbor. Our two families shared the kitchen and the back door. She had an elder brother from the same mother and a younger sister from her stepmother. Her own mother passed away while giving birth to her. For that, she was blamed by her father, therefore, no need to explain more about her position in the family. She was 1 or 2 years younger than I. As we were both the middle child in our families, we met often in the kitchen, which is very easy to understand. Mimi was an ordinary-looking girl. A sweet girl is more accurate than a beautiful girl. My memories of her started when our family moved from father's working unit to mother's unit. The very first day, it was Mimi who showed me how to get to school. Of course we did not walk shoulder to shoulder, but with her about 5 meters in front as I followed. Though we shared the same kitchen, we had no significant contact at that time, until 1 year later when I was about 11 years old, Mimi was 9 or 10, and we went to take our neighbor's banana. The story goes like this. Not far away from where we lived, there was a banana tree which was planted by one of our neighbors. In order to protect the bananas from being stolen, the neighbor named Chi made a fence surrounding the tree. We passed by the tree from time to time, and saw the bananas grow from tiny to small and then bigger and bigger. One day we saw a small banana had been bitten by a bird and was almost falling off the tree. We couldn't help but want to get hold of the banana and try the taste. We got ourselves inside the banana tree fence with no difficulty, but how to get to it remained a problem as the tree was too high for us to reach. I had to let Mimi ride on my shoulders to reach the banana. As soon as she got the almost falling banana, the owner of the banana tree, Chi, showed up. We got out of the fence and ran away as fast as we could, but Mimi was caught by Chi. I had to throw the half-dead banana toward them. Chi was so angry that he picked up the green, hard banana and tried to force it into Mimi's mouth. Mimi desperately tried to avoid the banana being squeezed into her mouth by keeping her mouth closed and lowering her head. This resulted in the banana hurting her nose. Seeing this, I had to come forward and face Chi to claim the guilt. I felt very sorry for Mimi's nose being hurt. That was the beginning of our teamwork. Our friendship started from there. It was about a week later, we met Chi's wife. She gave us a yellow banana, and told us, to eat a banana, you have to wait until it is ripe, then peel the skin off and eat it bite by bite. I think that was Mimi's first banana ever too, I guess. The second instance of teamwork brought us even closer. That happened when the Chinese Cultural Revolution started. I will tell the story in the next episode. 4. The Cultural Revolution begins. Bodhisat was on fire. In 1966, as soon as I reached the grade 6, our great leader Chairman Mao launched the historically unprecedented Cultural Revolution. Everyone who experienced the Cultural Revolution knows the movement began with breaking four olds: old thoughts, old culture, old tradition, old habits. Our school was situated in part of an old nunnery, a nunnery of historical significance. One day, when the whole class was criticizing our teacher, we overheard someone shouting,
"Everybody put on action! Let's burn all the bodhisattvas in the temple!"
Hence, people moved out many bodhisattvas, big ones, small ones, heaping them in front of the temple, then pouring asphalt on them. One match and immediately a thick smoke, rolling with fire, twisted into the sky. The one who lit the fire was a man we called Uncle Wong. As an 11-year-old boy, I didn't know what to be afraid of, and so went to see the crowd for fun with a neighbor about 10 years my elder. He showed off his knowledge by telling me,
"This is just like before liberation when the foreign devils burned our Circle Brilliant Garden in Beijing."
Now I know, just one match, and one match only, with madness, hundreds of years of heritage was burned. Meanwhile, a few women's voices, the nuns, shrieked,
"My bodhisattva! My bodhisattva!"
as they rushed into the fire. What followed was chaos. I was too small to see anything behind all the adults, only hearing the comments.
"Good miserable God! Being burned like that."
Amidst the chaos, I happened to see a very tiny Buddha dropped on the ground. To me it was just a toy, a doll, like Barbie dolls in other countries. I picked it up and quickly hid it in my school bag. On our way home, we happened to walk close to Uncle Huang and a couple of his colleagues. One man said,
"All these kinds of people are blocks to the Great Revolution, therefore we should not save them. Let them burn to death. As our great leader Chairman Mao taught us, there is revolution, there must be sacrifices."
Immediately after the man, a woman commented,
"That's right, that's right. Look at them, being burned like ghosts. How can they go on living? Better to let them be dead without pain than be alive with endless suffering, bloody miserable."
The opinion of Uncle Huang was, however, wiser.
Let them die? That would be too easy for them. Can't die and can't live. Not human, not ghost. Let them be worse than not to exist. This would be the best retribution and what they should get.
Back home, I wanted to give the little Buddha to Mimi as a doll, but Mimi was not at home. Instead, I placed it on their side of the kitchen. I just wanted to give Mimi a surprise, to please her. However, at that time, to adults, Buddhas were considered to belong to the four olds, and to have them was absolutely unacceptable, as serious a crime as possessing drugs is in most countries today. Next thing I knew, it was after Mimi was badly beaten by her father. Stripped of her clothes by her stepmother, she was left alone in the kitchen almost naked, only in her underpants. It was very cold. Mimi was in great pain and freezing. As soon as the adults went to work, I let Mimi into our home and lie in the bed of my brother and I shared the bed with my brother. She was so cold and terrified. I had to hold her tight to keep her warm inside the quilt. This was how we got closer to each other. Later, somehow, I managed to get the small Buddha back. I will tell more about this little Buddha story in later chapters. '5. The death of the secular bird Wang. Like everybody in China during the Cultural Revolution, I too personally encountered lots of difficult-to-comprehend events. For example, those who used to be looked down upon suddenly became mounted on a high horse, while those highly respectable people, like party leaders and school teachers, were suddenly down at the bottom of society. Some of them were even forced to parade around with a placard of bad names hanging on their necks. For a period of time, father was at home, staying at home, not going to work in the office. The whole country was paralyzed, the party, the government, the police, all except the army. There were Red Guards everywhere. They had absolute power to do whatever they wanted, searching anyone's home for four olds. They could beat anyone or even kill if they regarded them as an enemy. Mao shook hands with a Red Guard named Song Bingbing at the Tiananmen in front of billions. That girl, a Red Guard, had just killed her teacher by beating the teacher to death. And the rumor has it, she is now living in the USA. One day, Father found a piece of 5-layered plywood. He cut it and made a board, drilled 2 holes. Trying different ropes, he picked the best one and hung the board around his neck.
Too heavy,
Father said to himself. Then Father changed to a piece of 3-layered plywood and started all over again from the beginning.
Are you also going to parade with that?
Mother worried.
I'm not qualified.
Father smiled bitterly.
This is for my superior, Minister Wong.
Next, Father wrote on the board. Down to the capitalist road going Wong. I thought Father must have also joined the rebels, taking advantage of the timing to get revenge on Wong for what he did to my mother, transferring her to a much lower working unit. Recalling the hatred of his son from the instance of the Tong Hao, I was actually quite excited about Father's activities. But later I learned that Father was entrusted by Wong to make that board, as he couldn't make his own because he was handicapped. Wong was one of Mao's followers and had been shot several times during various battles. Until the day Mao announced the establishment of the new China, Wong also made an announcement that he was a secular bird and would never die. It must have been far beyond Wong's expectation that during his lifetime, in the country he fought for, one day, he would suddenly lose everything. Under the circumstances, all of his family members declared the cutting of all ties with him. My father, being his faithful old secretary, was the last and only person left in the world he could turn to for help. Wong was an optimistic person. Even under such pressure, he comforted my father by saying,
"Don't worry, old Chen. I'm not afraid. I've gone through everything in my life. I'm a secular bird. Remember?"
But the secular bird's day finally came. That day, Father's working unit held a criticizing meeting against Minister Wong. Wong was tied up and forced to kneel on the stage. People jumped up onto the stage, one after another, to make their accusations. That was an age of class above family. Wong's own son Wong Pang, as a Red Guard member, shouted slogans together with the others to knock down his father. More unexpectedly, Wong's wife too, jumped on the stage accusing Wong of cheating and forcing her to be his wife when she was young and innocent, working on an army propaganda team. That accusation certainly brought the meeting to a high climax. Wong was made to wear a high paper hat and the board my father made, while escorted to the parade. Though the board was not really heavy, Wong was handicapped. Coupled with the agony, there was no way he could walk with that board all the way through by himself. So, from time to time, Father took turns replacing him, carrying the board. After some distance, Wong was dragging his feet rather than walking. When the procession passed by a small garden pond, Wong broke loose and dashed into the pond. He had his final words.
Anti. All anti.
In front of everybody's eyes, he threw himself into the garden pond. The revolutionary sunk down to the bottom. Wong's wife fainted on the spot, like a dead tree trunk, and dirted her trousers with natural relief. Wong's son Wong Pang was nowhere in sight, for the time being. Only Wong Pang's younger sister was crying like hell for her daddy and mom. My father was shocked, of course. He instinctively rushed into the pond a few steps and then stopped, turned around, making every effort to conceal his emotion behind his eyeglasses. Reluctantly, he followed the ebullitions, shouting the slogan. Knock down the capitalist road going Wong. Wong is guilty, guilty for 10,000 deaths. The political conclusion to Wong was, betray the motherland, betray the party and betray the people. It is said that from 1966 to 1976, within those 10 years, around 2 million people died unnaturally, due to political reasons. Besides a huge number of suicides, they were killed not directly by the Communist Party, not by the government, not by any authorities, but by ordinary people themselves, such as students killing teachers, civilians killing party leaders, workers killing their work leaders, farmers killing surviving landlords and their families, the rebels and the loyalists killing each other. Six. Old revolutionaries encountering new problems. Old revolutionaries encountering new problems was a popular expression during the beginning of the Cultural Revolution. It is a literal, vivid description of the situation. My parents were, of course, among those who encountered the new problems. The biggest problem among all was how to adapt oneself to the incomprehensible happenings. After Wong's death, back home my parents had a heated debate. My mother was one of the most loyal. She was very angry with her husband for shouting slogans with the others to knock down Wong, especially after Wong's death.
Not to mention he used to be your superior. How could you betray such a good comrade, an old revolutionary?
Mother asked. I was a bit surprised by Mother's words, wondering if I should remind her who sent her to Panjiaping, causing a life change for our whole family. But Father reasoned.
Being a revolutionary, we can't let our emotions control our reason. The purpose for Chairman Mao launching the Cultural Revolution is to knock down those capitalist road-going leaders in the party. One used to be a revolutionary, he was our comrade, but today the political situation changed. He has become a capitalist road-going leader, therefore he is no longer our comrade but an enemy. I did betray my small landlord father and follow you on the revolutionary road before. Why can't I betray my capitalist road-going superior today? This is called continuous revolution under the dictatorship of the proletariat.
Father was getting more and more excited. He recited Mao's quotation. The words were more like crying out rather than speaking out.
What is revolution? Revolution is not inviting someone for a meal. Revolution is riot, is a violent activity for one class to overthrow another.
This is too ruthless.
Mother cried out.
Revolution has always been ruthless.
After Father finished, he swallowed the phlegm in his mouth. After a little pause, Mother emphasized again.
Everything is mad. White becomes black, and black becomes white.
Exactly. This is what today we call box up or snafu. Everything we see is opposite, which means whatever was good is bad and whatever was bad is good.
Although Father's tone sounded positive, it clearly could not cover his perplexity.
Whatever you say, still I feel that it's all wrong.
Mother's voice became weak and full of despair. Father changed his tone to be more negotiable.
Right or wrong, let history make its conclusion. The only thing we can do right now is to listen to our great leader Chairman Mao.
The family political debate ended. Father put the board he made for Wong on the loft, in front of Chairman Mao's quotation book, and a lighter. The lighter that Father received from Wong as a private gift many years ago, the lighter that Father carried with him everywhere, every day and showed off before people from time to time. Quite a few days after that debate, Mother not only refused to talk to Father, but also refused to have a meal with Father at the same table. Despite being similar to most youth, I was also extremely perplexed. In addition, similar to many others, the biggest desire for me at that time was to take part in the Red Guard, so that I could wear a self-made army uniform, a red chevron on my arm and leather belt at my waist. Unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, I was too young. There was nothing I could do. Could I rebel against my parents for that? Could I? The worst thing was my brother Danson, only 1.5 years older than me, had been accepted by the Red Guard. What made me even more jealous was he, together with a few other older neighbors, visited the revolution holy site, Jinggangshan. While poor little me, with no school to go to, no nothing to do, every day nested at home, cooking. If it were not that we shared the kitchen with Humimi and the fact that with her I could boast about anything I liked, I would probably have died of boredom. Fortunately, that situation didn't last long. Finally, I found something very special, that I love and more importantly I believed could help me reach my ultimate goal of gaining the respect of my whole family, especially that of my father. What could that be? Please find out in the next chapter.